Welcome to our YouTube channel. We were discussing about forces and motion unit 1 IGCSE 91 basic syllabus. Last video I was explaining the experiment 1, the practical one in IGCSE syllabus about light gates and data loggers. Now we move to the next part of the lesson. Distance time graphs, or we call it ST graphs. So what is a ST graph? The ST graph shows how the distance traveled by an object on a straight path changes with time. Actually, even it is labeled as distance time graphs. Here we are discussing about displacement, right? That's why I have mentioned the distance traveled on a straight path. Within bracket I have mentioned on a straight path. So in this distance time graph lesson, we are discussing about the objects moving on a straight path. Okay, first here look at this table. Time is given in seconds, distance is given in meters. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, distance 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So using this table, we'll draw the graph. Y-axis, we take y-axis as the distance. You have to mention the unit within bracket, that is meters. X-axis time within bracket seconds. Now we'll label the scale. Here remember, when you choosing a scale for the axis, don't choose 7 times or 3 times, 11 times, because they are the numbers that gives recurrent decimals. So always we pick 1 times, 2 times, 4 times, 5 times and 10 times, like that, the multiples that do not give recurring decimals. Okay, now here I write this 5, 10, 15, 20, it's 5 times table. Time axis 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now I can mark the points. 2 is x coordinate, y coordinate is 5, 2, 5, 4, 10, 6, 15, 8, 20, 10, 25, 12, 30. So when you match this, you can get a straight line. When you match these points, you can get a straight line, right? So how to find the gradient? In mathematics you have learned gradient is equal to what? Difference in y coordinates divided by difference in x coordinate. That means you have to choose 2 points on the line, right? So then take the difference in y coordinates and divide that by difference in x coordinate. Okay, here remember, when you finding a gradient, right, gradient of the graph, always choose the points furthest from each other. That means, for example, 2 and 5 and 6 and 15, that is not the standard, that is not the way to find the gradient. If you choose 2, 5, next point should be what? 12, 30, furthest from each other, 12 and 30, right? We have to find the biggest triangle to get the gradient. That means here if you choose 5 and 12, these points 5, 2, 5 and 12, 30, you get a larger triangle, right? Here you can draw a large triangle, right? But if you choose these 2 points, you will get small triangle. So the standard is you have to select the largest possible triangle to find the gradient. So we'll check the gradient. We'll take the calculation. Here 30 minus 5, the y coordinate difference, 12 minus 2, x coordinate difference, 25 over 10, you get plus 2.5 meters per second. Look at the unit of the gradient, it is in meters per second. What is the meaning of that? The gradient of the distance time graph is equal to the speed of the object. That is one theory you learn in this part. Gradient of a ST graph, we call ST graph or distance time graph, shows the speed of the object. Graph is a straight line with a constant positive gradient. Okay, now we'll move to the next slide. Here we are going to learn different types of ST graphs that explain different types of motions. In the first one, it is a straight line goes through the origin. Properties of the graph: straight line with a constant positive gradient. Here, positive gradient. How you check whether it is positive gradient? This is also learned in mathematics. You know, in a graph lesson, if the graph gives an acute angle with the x-axis, we consider those graphs as positive gradient graphs, positive graphs. That is the way to identify positive graph. And constant, how to check whether it is constant? You draw a horizontal line in different places. That angle doesn't change. Here you drew an angle. That angle is same for all the points in the graph. So we can tell the gradient is constant, and because of the acute angle we can tell the gradient is positive. Now we'll move to the next one. Right. This graph shows what? In the previous slide also we checked. The object is moving with a steady, or we can call constant speed. The object is moving with a constant speed. Now we'll move to the next part. Another ST graph. Here remember, always you have to put the units within bracket when you label in the axis. In the exam, they don't give marks if you do not label the axis. If you do not label the axis and if you do not put the units, you don't get full marks. Right. Now we are comparing two objects, A and B. So you can see the graph A and graph B both are straight lines. Properties of the graph: straight lines with constant positive gradients. Both objects moving with steady speeds. So it's straight line coming in the ST graph. It always means the objects are moving with constant, or we call it steady speed. Graph A has higher gradient than graph B. You can see graph A is steeper than graph B. How you check that? The angle for graph A is higher than angle for graph B. So you can see graph A has higher gradient, but both gradients are positive. So what is the meaning of that? Object A moving with a higher steady speed than object B. Both are moving with constant speed, but object A has higher speed than object B. Okay. I hope all of you understood that. Now we'll move to the next one. Horizontal line on the ST graph. Horizontal line. What is the meaning of that? Line is horizontal, gradient is 0. Straight line with 0 gradient. Even the time passes, object is at the same distance. That means distance doesn't change. So we can call the object is not moving or stationary. The object is stationary. Right. We'll move to the next one. Okay. This is also a straight line, but what is the difference? This is a straight line with a negative gradient. Now how you check whether it is a negative gradient? Draw a line, horizontal line, and check this angle. This angle is what? Obtuse angle, an obtuse angle. If the line, if the straight line on, if the graph line makes obtuse angle with the horizontal axis, we call it negative gradient. Straight line with a negative gradient. That's how you check that. If the graph line is making an acute angle, we call it positive gradient. Right? So that is the way to check whether the graph line is positive or negative. Acute angle means positive, obtuse angle means negative. Right? This is a straight line, you know. If you draw horizontal lines, the angle is same angle. That means it is a constant gradient, constant negative gradient. So what is the meaning of that? The object is moving towards the initial direction, opposite direction with a constant speed. It's like this. Suppose you started from point A, and you consider towards B, point B is the positive direction, right? Positive direction. So all the objects moving from A to B moving in the positive direction. Now this graph explains an object moving towards A from B with a constant speed. That is the meaning of this ST graph. Okay, now we'll come to the last part of the lesson. The graph is a curve. You can see the graph is a curve. So we can use the previous knowledge how to find the graph is a positive or negative. So first you have to draw straight lines. You can see the graph makes acute angle with the horizontal lines. That means the graph has a positive gradient. What happened to the gradient? You can see the angle of these lines increases. Angle increases when you go up. That means the gradient of the graph is increasing. So this is a positive gradient and the gradient is increasing gradient. And you learned in previous parts, the gradient represent speed of the object. So according to that thing, the gradient increasing, that means speed of the object increasing. The object is moving with an increasing speed. We call that acceleration. So this is the way to show acceleration using ST graph. Now we'll move to the next one. Right. This one also positive gradient. You can see that. But gradient is increasing or decreasing. We have to check using these lines. The angle between the graph and this horizontal line, you can see it is decreasing. Decreasing angle mean decreasing gradient. So it means the object moving with decreasing speed. A curved line with a decreasing gradient, the object is moving with deceleration. So when you show deceleration using ST graph, you have to draw a curved line with a decreasing gradient. Now we'll summarize the lesson ST graphs. You can see increasing gradient or curving up, we can label it as speeding up. Then straight line, constant speed. Then curving down, we can label it as slowing down or deceleration. And horizontal line, we can label it as standing still or stationary. I hope all of you understood this distance time graph lesson. If you have any doubt, you can mention that in the comment section. Next video, I'm going to discuss about velocity and acceleration.